After all, how many sets are necessary to maximize muscle growth for those over 40? If you're over 40 years old and looking to maximize your muscle gains, you've probably encountered conflicting information about training volume. Some experts advocate for very high volumes, reaching up to 25 sets per muscle per week. Others argue that just 10 sets are already sufficient. And you, in the middle of this confusion, keep wondering, after all, how many sets do I really need to do? The truth is that training volume is one of the most critical factors when we talk about muscle hypertrophy. There's a mountain of scientific evidence demonstrating that training volume is one of the main drivers of muscle growth. A dose-response relationship between volume and muscle gain has been widely documented in the scientific literature. But here's the problem. Determining the ideal volume isn't as simple as it seems. And when we add the age variable into the equation, especially for men over 40 years old, things get even more complex. After all, our recovery capacity changes, our hormonal levels decrease, and our tolerance to training stress is no longer the same as when we were 25 years old. That's why in this video, you'll see an in-depth analysis to understand exactly how many sets you, a man over 40, need to do to maximize your muscle gains. I'll present what the most recent science says about the topic, but I'll also adapt this information to the reality of those who have already passed 40. Before we dive into the specific numbers, we need to make very clear what exactly training volume is. It may seem obvious, but there are different ways to measure volume, and each has its advantages and limitations. Definition number 1, volume load. The first definition is volume load, also known as volume load. This is a more mathematical measure and represents the total tonnage you move during a training session. The calculation is simple: sets times repetitions times load. For example, imagine you did 4 sets of 8 repetitions on the bench press with 220 pounds. Your volume load would be 4 times 8 times 220 equals 7,040 pounds. This means you moved 7,040 pounds of total volume in that exercise. This metric is extremely useful for tracking your progress within the same training program. If you maintain the same exercises and see your volume load increasing week after week, it's an excellent indicator that you're progressing and providing an adequate stimulus for muscle growth. The great advantage of volume load is that it's objective and easy to quantify. You can write down the numbers in your training diary and be sure you're evolving. This is especially motivating for men over 40, who sometimes may feel discouraged for not progressing as fast as younger people. Definition 2, hard sets. The second definition, and probably the most used, in the scientific literature, is the number of hard sets you perform for each muscle group per week. A hard set is one taken close to or until muscular failure, where you really challenge the muscle. For example, if you train legs twice a week and do 6 hard sets of quadriceps on Monday and 6 more hard sets on Thursday, your weekly volume for quadriceps would be 12 hard sets. This definition is considered more useful when we want to compare different programs, evaluate changes over time, or compare our volume with scientific recommendations. Why? Because it's relative to the individual. Why are hard sets more useful for comparisons? Here's the problem with volume load. It can be misleading when you change exercises. Let's use a practical example. Imagine you replace the free squat with the leg press. In the free squat, you can use 265 pounds for 4 sets of 8 repetitions. On the leg press, you can use 440 pounds for the same 4 sets of 8 repetitions. Your volume load in the squat would be 8,480 pounds, while on the leg press, it would be 14,080 pounds. Does this mean you dramatically increased your training volume? Not necessarily. You simply changed to an exercise where you can use more load, but the effective stimulus for the muscle may be very similar. That's why, in these cases, counting hard sets is much more accurate. Additionally, we all have different biomechanical levers, training histories, strengths, and weaknesses. A 45-year-old man who is 5 feet 9 inches tall with short arms may have a very different bench press from another man, the same age, who is 6 feet 3 inches tall with long arms. Comparing the volume load between them doesn't make much sense, but comparing the number of hard sets, that is useful. Which metric should you use then? My recommendation is simple. Use both, but in different contexts. Use volume load to track your progress within the same training block when you maintain the same exercises. It's motivating and objective to see the numbers going up. Use hard sets when you want to evaluate your total weekly volume, compare with scientific recommendations, or evaluate changes from one program to another. This is the metric we'll mainly use when we talk about how many sets to do. For men over 40, I'd say tracking both metrics is even more important, as it helps us make sure we're progressing without overloading ourselves. Remember, after 40, recovery is an even more critical factor. Now that we understand how to measure training volume, let's get to what really matters. What does science say about how many sets you need to do to maximize muscle growth? Brad Schoenfeld's research. When we talk about muscle hypertrophy and training volume, there's no more respected researcher than Brad Schoenfeld. He's a former bodybuilder and personal trainer who became one of the leading scientists in the area of strength training. With more than 100 scientific articles published in peer-reviewed journals and several best-selling books, Schoenfeld is one of the world's leading authorities on the subject. In 2018, Schoenfeld published a comprehensive review of the scientific literature on training volume and hypertrophy. The title of the article? Evidence-Based Guidelines for Resistance Training Volume to Maximize Muscle Hypertrophy. In this monumental study, he analyzed dozens of research papers and reached some important conclusions. Based on all available scientific evidence, Schoenfeld concluded that 10 or more sets per muscle per week represents a good starting point for those seeking to maximize hypertrophy. This recommendation is aligned with what most evidence-based coaches suggest, which generally falls in the range of 10 to 15 weekly sets per muscle group. But attention, this doesn't mean you need to do 10 sets of chest in a single day. In fact, it's much more efficient to distribute these sets throughout the week. For example, you could do 5 sets of chest on Monday and 5 more on Thursday, totaling your 10 weekly sets. But what if you have little time? Is there an effective minimum? Here comes crucial information, especially for men over 40 who generally have established careers, family, responsibilities, and a tight schedule. Schoenfeld also discovered that substantial gains can be achieved with just 4 to 6 sets per muscle per week. That's right. If you're an extremely busy person and can do only 4 to 6 weekly sets for each muscle group, you can still grow. The gains won't be maximized, but they'll be far from insignificant. This is extremely important to demystify the idea that you need to train 2 hours a day, 6 times a week to get results. For a man in his early 40s with children, a demanding job, and other responsibilities, knowing he can build muscle with an efficient program of 3 or 4 weekly workouts of 45 minutes is liberating. The debate of the century, high or low volume. It's important to mention that not all researchers completely agree with these recommendations. There's a smaller group of scientists who defend lower volumes, stating that sometimes even a single set per exercise taken to failure can be sufficient to stimulate similar hypertrophy. Low-volume advocates argue that many studies haven't been able to demonstrate statistically significant differences between low and high-volume groups. But here's the problem with this argument. Failing to achieve statistical significance doesn't necessarily mean there's no practical difference. Often, these studies have small samples, and when we look at the effect size, we see that the high-volume group tends to have superior results in practice, even if the difference isn't large enough to be statistically significant with that limited number of participants. In my opinion, and in the opinion of most experts, it's better that, within reason, you err on the side of excess rather than deficiency. If you have time and recovery capacity, doing 10 to 15 weekly sets per muscle group will, on average, bring superior results to doing only 4 to 6 sets. With this in mind, we arrive at the crucial point of this video. How does age affect our training volume needs? Why can't a 45-year-old man simply follow the same program as a 25-year-old? 3 main reasons. Reason number 1, hormonal changes. Starting at 30 years old, and especially after 40, men experience a gradual drop in testosterone levels. On average, this drop is about 1% per year. It may seem small, but at 50 years old, you may have 20% less testosterone than you had at 30. Testosterone is crucial for muscle protein synthesis, recovery, and muscle mass building. Lower levels mean your body may need more time to recover from an intense workout. Besides testosterone, other anabolic hormones like growth hormone, known as GH, also decrease with age. And stress-related hormones like cortisol may have a more pronounced and lasting response to intense exercise. What does this mean for training volume? It means you may need more recovery time between training sessions for the same muscle group. It means that extremely high volumes can be counterproductive, more easily leading to overtraining. Reason 2, reduced recovery capacity. Beyond hormonal changes, men over 40 generally have a diminished global recovery capacity. This happens for several reasons. Sleep quality. Many men in this age range report worse sleep quality. They wake up more during the night, have lighter sleep, and may not enter deep sleep phases with the same frequency. And sleep is when the body recovers and grows. Life stress. In their early 40s, many men are at the peak of their careers, with heavy professional responsibilities. They may have young children or teenagers, mortgages, financial problems. All this psychological stress directly affects muscular recovery. Systemic inflammation. With age, we tend to have higher levels of low-grade chronic inflammation. This can prolong the time needed for complete muscular recovery. Mitochondrial density. Mitochondria are the power plants of cells. With age, mitochondrial function can decline, affecting energy production and recovery. Reason 3, greater risk of injuries. Men over 40 have joints that have already gone through decades of use. Tendons and ligaments lose some elasticity. Bone density may start to decrease. Old injuries can leave vulnerable areas. This means doing absurdly high training volume significantly increases the risk of injuries. And here's the problem. When you get injured at 25 years old, you can recover in a few weeks. When you get injured at 45, the same injury can take months to heal completely. A serious injury can take you out of the gym for months, destroying all your gains. Therefore, for men over 40, it's crucial to find the balance between enough volume to grow and volume that doesn't overload your joints and connective tissues. Before you get discouraged, let me share the good news. Studies show that older men can still build muscle effectively. The growth rate may be a bit slower, but it's far from impossible. In fact, men over 40 have some advantages. Mental maturity. You probably have more discipline, consistency, and patience than you had at 25. You understand that building muscle is a marathon, not a sprint. Better technique. With more experience, you probably execute exercises with better form, maximizing muscle stimulus and minimizing injury risk. Resources. You tend to have more financial resources to invest in good nutrition, quality supplements, and even professional guidance. Specific volume recommendations for men over 40. Based on everything we've discussed, the science of training volume and specific considerations for men over 40, here are my guidelines. For beginners, in this case, those with less than 1 year of consistent training, start conservative. 8 to 10 sets per muscle group per week. This is enough to stimulate significant growth while allowing your body to adapt to training stress. Divide this into 2 or 3 weekly sessions per muscle. For example, for chest, 5 sets on Monday and 5 on Thursday, or 4 sets on Monday, 3 on Wednesday, and 3 on Saturday. Focus on compound exercises like bench press, squat, overhead press, row, etc. Exercises that work multiple muscle groups simultaneously. This maximizes efficiency and prevents you from having to do endless sessions. Absolute priority. Perfect technique. Don't worry so much about the weight on the bar. Focus on learning the movements correctly. This will pay enormous dividends in the long run, both in gains and injury prevention. For intermediates, that is, those with 1 to 3 years of consistent training. Here, your body is more adapted and you can gradually increase volume. 10 to 15 sets per muscle group per week. This is the ideal range for most men over 40 at intermediate level. Continue distributing volume throughout the week. A frequency of 2 to 3 times per week per muscle group continues to be ideal. You can start including more isolation exercises besides compounds. For example, besides bench press, adding flies or crossovers for chest. But compounds should still be the base of your program. Consider cycling your volume. For example, you could do 4 weeks with 12 sets per muscle, then 4 weeks with 15 sets, followed by 1 week of deload with only 6 to 8 sets to allow complete recovery. For advanced, that is, those with more than 3 years of consistent training, 12 to 18 sets per muscle group per week. Very advanced natural athletes can reach 20 sets for large and well-recovered muscle groups, but this should be done cautiously. A frequency of 3 to 4 times per week per muscle group can work well at this level, using an appropriate training split. Attention to recovery. At this volume, recovery becomes even more critical. Monitor overtraining signs: insomnia, irritability, performance drop, persistent joint pain, lack of motivation. Advanced volume manipulation. You can use strategies like undulating volume. This means performing heavier weeks alternated with lighter weeks. Individual factors that affect your ideal volume and need to be taken into account. It's absolutely crucial to understand that these are guidelines, not absolute rules. Your ideal volume depends on multiple factors. Sleep quality. If you sleep 8 hours of quality sleep per night, you can handle more volume than someone who sleeps 5 to 6 poorly slept hours. Nutrition. If you eat adequately, with sufficient protein and appropriate calories, you can support more volume. Genetics. Some men simply recover faster than others. This is genetic and you can't change it, but you can learn to work with your genetics. Injury history. Previously injured areas may not tolerate as much volume. You may need to do more volume for healthy muscle groups and less for compromised areas. Use of ergogenics. Men who do testosterone replacement therapy under medical supervision may tolerate slightly higher volumes due to optimized hormonal levels. The importance of volume periodization. One of the biggest mistakes I see men over 40 make is trying to maintain the same training volume all year round. This is a recipe for stagnation and, eventually, overtraining. Periodization means systematically varying training variables over time. When we talk about volume, this means alternating between periods of higher volume and lower volume. Why does this work? Because it allows you to push your body beyond what it's used to. High volume phase, creating stress and stimulus, followed by recovery. Periods, low volume phase, where supercompensation and real growth occur. Here are the 6 main signs that you need a deload. Performance dropping for 2 or more consecutive workouts. Persistent joint pain. Lack of motivation to train. Sleep quality worsening. Increased irritability. Elevated resting heart rate in the morning. If you observe 3 or more of these signs, it may be time for a deload, regardless of where you are in the planned cycle. This is a basic summary of what you can do from 40 years onward. And as we always make clear, the basics, well done, and with consistency, is what works. If you liked it and want to also discover the latest studies on how many days you should really rest before training the same muscle again, we've left a video appearing right now on the screen showing each of them better. Be sure to check it out. Thank you for watching until here, and may God bless you, my friend.